Hi, and welcome back to Forsaken Joe. Today's story isn't about just heartbreak. It's about that single moment when your entire world tilts and you realize the person you trust most might be living a double life. I wasn't supposed to see what I saw. I wasn't even supposed to be there, but curiosity is a cruel thing. My wife had told me for weeks about this office party she couldn't skip, how it was just for team building, how it'd be boring, how I shouldn't bother coming. Maybe that's why I went. Maybe I wanted to prove to myself that I still mattered to her. When I walked into that rooftop bar, everything felt wrong. People were laughing too hard, drinks spilling like no one cared about tomorrow, and there, right near the balcony, she was. My wife, Marlene, and she wasn't alone. She was kissing him, not a shy, stolen kiss, not something you could excuse as drunken fun. It was slow, familiar, like she'd been there with him before. My chest felt like someone had punched straight through it. I stood frozen, just watching the woman I thought was my forever give that part of herself to another man as if I didn't exist. I left without a word, no scene, no shouting, just silence. That's who I am. I shut down when I'm hurt, and trust me, I was bleeding inside. All night, I sat on our couch, waiting. The clock hit 2 a.m., then 3, then 4, nothing. No text, no call, just emptiness. And then, just as the sun started to rise, I heard it. A knock, weak, uneven. I opened the door, and there she was, makeup smudged, eyes swollen from crying, looking like the night had chewed her up and spat her out. "Please," she said, her voice shaking. "Ellis, let me explain. It's not what you think." But I didn't believe her, not anymore. If you've been following, you know I was standing there at my own front door, staring at my wife Marlene like she was a stranger. She looked broken, her lipstick smudged, her eyes glassy like she'd been crying for hours. I didn't say a word. I just stepped aside and let her in, because part of me needed to hear what could possibly explain kissing some guy at her office party. She sat down on the couch, hugging her knees like a kid who had been caught doing something terrible. "Ellis, I swear to you, it's not what it looked like," she said. "Those words always sound like a cliche, but when they come from your wife, they cut differently." My hands were shaking. I didn't even want to sit near her. I stood by the doorway, arms crossed, feeling like if I got too close, I'd just explode. She took a deep breath, like she was about to confess to a murder. "His name is Jonah. He's my manager," she began, her voice trembling. "He's been making moves on me for months." I told him no. I told him I was married, but last night... She paused, looking down at her hands. "He kissed me." I froze. I didn't know how to react. I was scared to cause a scene at the party. I wanted to believe her, but that kiss... I saw it with my own eyes. It wasn't one-sided. Her hand was on his chest, her body leaning into him. I wanted to scream, "Do you really think I'm that stupid?" But instead, I just said, "So you're telling me you had no part in it? You just accidentally kissed him back?" My voice cracked, and I hated how weak I sounded. She started sobbing, shaking her head violently. "No! I swear I pushed him away right after. I left the party because I felt sick about it. I didn't even know you were there, Ellis. I came home to tell you everything, but..." She trailed off, her eyes flicking toward the floor. "I couldn't bring myself to face you last night." Something inside me snapped. "So you just didn't come home? You let me sit here, thinking you were with him, while you, wandered the city? Or maybe you were with him after all." My voice was louder now, my heart pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. She flinched at my words. "No! I stayed at a hotel. I didn't want to see anyone. I just needed space." The silence that followed was unbearable. My mind was spinning with 1,000 images, none of them good. I didn't know what to believe anymore. I didn't know who she was anymore. And that's when she whispered something that froze me. "There's more I need to tell you. Something I should have told you months ago." My stomach dropped. This is where things went from devastating to absolutely unreal. I was standing there, staring at Marlene, my wife, who had just said the words that made my chest tighten like someone had wrapped chains around it. "There's more I need to tell you. Something I should have told you months ago." I sat down across from her because my legs were starting to shake, and I didn't trust myself to stay on my feet. "Just say it, Marlene. Whatever it is, just tell me," I said. But my voice didn't even sound like my own. It sounded thin, broken, like I was begging. And I guess I was. Begging to hear the truth, even though I wasn't sure I could handle it. She wiped her face with her sleeve and wouldn't look me in the eyes. "It started at work," she said quietly. "But it wasn't Jonah. Not at first. There was someone else, someone I was just venting to about us, about how distant you've been, how I felt like we were more like roommates than husband and wife. I swear I never meant for it to go anywhere. But he listened, and you didn't. Those words felt like knives. I didn't listen? I wanted to shout that I had tried, that I was the one who worked overtime to keep this house, this life, together. But the lump in my throat was too big, and all I could do was stare. Her hands were shaking as she continued. One night after work, I went out with some colleagues. He was there. I drank too much. We kissed, just once. I told myself it was a mistake and I cut it off. But Jonah found out. He's been holding it over me, threatening to tell you if I didn't play along, if I didn't. Her voice cracked and she broke down completely. I felt sick. The room was spinning. "Are you telling me you've been..." "What?" "Letting this guy blackmail you into... this?" I could barely say the words because I didn't want to imagine what this even meant. She nodded, sobbing so hard she could barely breathe. "He's been texting me, calling me, cornering me at work. I thought if I kept him calm, he'd stop. But last night, at the party, he kissed me in front of everyone. I panicked. I didn't know what to do. I wish I could tell you I believed her right then. I wish I could say I wrapped her in my arms like a hero in some romantic movie. But all I felt was this deep, twisting rage, not just at Jonah, not just at her, but at myself. Because part of me still wanted to protect her, to believe her, even after everything. I stood up and walked to the kitchen, trying to catch my breath. I needed space, but the walls felt like they were closing in on me. I grabbed my phone. "We're not leaving this like this. Give me his number," I said coldly. Marlene froze. "Ellis, no, please don't. He'll make it worse. I turned to her, my voice shaking. "Worse than this? He already took everything from me, from us. I'm not sitting here while some suit at your office decides what happens to my marriage." That's when my phone buzzed, a text. From an unknown number, the message made my blood run cold. "You saw us, didn't you? Maybe we should talk man to man. If you've been listening, you know that the last thing I saw before my world turned upside down was that text from Jonah, the man who kissed my wife. You saw us, didn't you? Maybe we should talk man to man." Those words burned through my brain like acid. I stared at my phone, reading them over and over, my hands trembling so badly I nearly dropped it. Marlene's face went pale when she saw the message. "Ellis, don't answer him. He's just trying to get into your head. That's what he does. He'll twist everything. Please, just leave it alone. We can figure this out together." Her voice cracked when she said together, like she wasn't even sure we were a we anymore. But I couldn't leave it. I needed answers. I needed to hear from him, what he thought he was doing. What kind of man kisses another man's wife and then has the audacity to send a message like that? My thumbs hovered over the keyboard for a moment before I typed, "Meet me tonight." No excuses. Marlene's reaction was immediate and explosive. She jumped up from the couch, grabbing my phone out of my hand. "What are you doing? Do you want him to ruin us? Do you even realize what he's capable of?" Her voice was trembling, but there was something else there too. Fear. Not just fear for me, but something darker, like she was hiding something she didn't want Jonah to say out loud. "Capable of what?" I demanded. "Because from where I'm standing, he's already destroyed everything." My voice was shaking, not from anger alone, but from this deep humiliation I couldn't wash off. I felt small, pathetic, like some clueless husband who never saw the storm coming until it ripped his house apart. She didn't answer. Instead, she crumpled onto the floor, sobbing into her hands. And I, like an idiot, still knelt beside her. Because even after seeing her kiss him, even after hearing her admit to things I'm not sure I'll ever forgive, she was still my wife, my Marlene, and I still loved her, God help me. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat in the kitchen, my phone clutched in my hand, waiting for a reply. Around midnight it came. "Old Pier, 1 a.m., come alone." The old pier was less than 10 minutes away. It's one of those places people avoid after dark, quiet, abandoned, with the kind of silence that feels like it's listening to you. I told Marlene I wasn't going, but when she finally fell asleep, I grabbed my keys and left. I can't even describe the feeling I had driving there. My stomach was twisted in knots, my hands slick with sweat on the steering wheel. Part of me wanted to turn back, to forget I ever saw that kiss, to pretend our life was still what I thought it was. But I kept driving. When I arrived, Jonah was already there, leaning against his car like he owned the night. He wasn't nervous. He wasn't ashamed. He was smirking, like this was some kind of game. "You must be Ellis," he said, as casually as if we were meeting at a coffee shop. "I was wondering how long it would take for you to grow a backbone." Something in me snapped. "You're going to tell me everything," I said through gritted teeth. "Every single thing you've done to my wife, and then you're going to stay the hell away from her." Jonah just smiled. That kind of cold, knowing smile that makes you feel like you're the punchline of a joke you don't understand. Oh, Ellis, if only you knew how deep this really goes. If I thought I was ready for whatever Jonah had to say that night at the pier, I was dead wrong. He wasn't just some smug guy trying to steal my wife. No, this man had the kind of confidence that comes from knowing something you don't, something that can crush you. We stood under the flickering street lamp near the water, the kind of light that made shadows look sharper, like everything around me was edged in danger. Jonah crossed his arms and tilted his head slightly, studying me like I was a puzzle he was enjoying taking apart. "You think this is just about a kiss?" he said with a smirk. "Ellis, man, you have no idea. Marlene, she's not the person you think she is. She's been lying to you for months." I wanted to tell him to shut up, that I didn't believe a word coming out of his mouth, but the way he said it, so calm, so certain, made my stomach churn. "You don't know anything about my wife," I snapped, even though, deep down, I was starting to doubt myself. Jonah chuckled, the sound low and mocking. "Oh, I know plenty, like the fact that she's been talking to me about leaving you for weeks." "Did she tell you that?" It was like the air got sucked out of my lungs. I shook my head slowly, trying to process what I was hearing. "You're lying," I said, my voice hoarse. "She would never—" He cut me off. "You saw the way she kissed me. You think that was a mistake? She's confused, Ellis. She doesn't know how to tell you she's done." He stepped closer, his eyes glinting in the dim light. "And the thing is, I'm not even the first. You know that, right?" I felt like I was going to be sick. My legs were trembling so badly I had to take a step back just to keep my balance. "You're just trying to mess with my head," I said, but even I didn't believe my own words. There was something about the way he looked at me, this sharp, confident stare, that made me think he wasn't bluffing. Jonah leaned against his car, pulling out his phone. "You want proof? Fine." He scrolled for a moment before holding it out toward me. On the screen were photos, Marlene and him, sitting too close at some bar, her hand on his arm. Another of them laughing, her head tilted in that familiar way, like she was completely at ease with him. The last photo made my blood run cold. It was her, standing in the doorway of his apartment. I stumbled back. My brain couldn't process it. I wanted to scream, to punch him, to destroy that phone. But all I could do was stare. "Why are you showing me this?" I whispered. "Because you need to face the truth," Jonah said, his voice suddenly colder. "She's not the perfect wife you think she is. She's been mine for a while now, and if you think you can scare me off, you're wrong. She came to me, Ellis, not the other way around." I could feel my heart pounding like it was going to burst out of my chest. "You're lying," I said again, but it sounded weak even to me. I grabbed my phone, my fingers shaking as I scrolled through Marlene's messages. Nothing. Clean. Too clean. When I looked back up, Jonah had that smile again. "Go home, Ellis. Ask her. See what she says. But trust me, when you do, you won't like the answer." I didn't even remember driving back home. My mind was on fire the whole way. By the time I walked through the front door, Marlene was sitting on the couch, clutching a blanket like she'd been waiting for me. One look at me, and she knew I'd seen something. "Ellis," she said softly, her eyes wide. "What did he tell you?" And I just stood there, staring at her, because I didn't know what to believe anymore. When I walked back into our house after meeting Jonah, I felt like I was stepping into someone else's life. Everything looked the same, our pictures on the walls, the mug Marlene left on the coffee table, but I couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't my home anymore. Not really. It felt like a stage set, a place where lies had been rehearsed until they became too convincing. Marlene was sitting on the couch with her knees pulled up, wrapped in one of my hoodies, like she was trying to appear small and fragile. "Ellis," she said carefully, "what did he tell you?" Her voice had that tremor, the one I used to think meant she was scared of losing me. Now I wasn't sure if it meant anything at all. I didn't sit down. I didn't even take off my shoes. "He showed me pictures," I said, my voice sharper than I intended. "Pictures of you two, at bars, at his apartment. He told me you've been talking about leaving me for weeks. So, tell me, Marlene, is he lying? Or have I been living in some fantasy where you're still my wife?" She flinched like I'd hit her, but her silence was worse than any answer she could have given me. Her lips parted, then closed again, like she was fighting with herself about whether to tell me the truth. Finally, she whispered, "Ellis, it wasn't supposed to happen this way. I swear I never wanted to hurt you." I laughed, but it wasn't the kind of laugh that comes from humor. It was bitter and cracked. "Hurt me? You kissed him in public. You were at his apartment. Do you even know what that did to me? I can't even look at you without seeing him." Tears were streaming down her face, but I couldn't bring myself to care. "You don't understand," she said, her voice shaking. "Jonah, he's not who you think he is. He's been controlling me. Not just blackmail, but worse. He knows things about me, about my past, things I've never told you, and I was scared that if I didn't..." She stopped herself, covering her mouth with her hand. "What things?" I demanded. "What the hell could be so bad that you let this guy treat you like his property? What is it you haven't told me, Marlene?" She stood up then, her legs trembling as she faced me. "Before we met, I was in trouble, Ellis. I made mistakes. I got involved with someone I shouldn't have. Jonah knows about it, and he's been using it to control me since the day he became my boss. I thought I could handle it, but then he started threatening to tell you everything unless I played along." I stared at her, my mind spinning. "So this whole time, you were just... what? His puppet? That kiss at the party? Was that another threat? Or was that you giving in?" Her face crumpled. "I don't even know anymore. I feel like I'm losing myself, Ellis. I was trying to protect you, to keep this from destroying us, but I've made it worse. So much worse." I didn't know what to say. I felt like I was standing on the edge of a cliff, looking down into a darkness I couldn't see the bottom of. All I could think about was Jonah's smug face, his voice when he said, "She's been mine for a while now." That night, I couldn't stay in the same room as her. I slept, or tried to, on the floor of my office, my mind stuck on a loop of images and questions I couldn't answer. I wanted to believe her, but the doubt was poisoning everything. The next morning, when I walked into the kitchen, there was an envelope on the table with my name on it. Inside were printed screenshots of messages between Marlene and Jonah. Some were harmless, work-related, but others. I couldn't breathe reading them. Things like, "We can't keep doing this," and "I can't stop thinking about you." When I looked up, Marlene was standing in the doorway, pale and shaking. "I didn't put that there," she said, her voice trembling. "Ellis, I think he's watching us." The morning I found that envelope on our kitchen table was the moment I realized this wasn't just about infidelity anymore. This was something much bigger, much darker. The screenshots weren't just random messages. They were curated, hand-picked, designed to break me. Each one felt like a punch to the gut, especially the ones where Marlene's words didn't leave much room for interpretation. "We can't keep doing this. I don't want to see you tonight." The kind of messages that could mean anything, or everything. I wanted to believe they were out of context, that Jonah had twisted them, but the doubt was a parasite that had already buried itself deep inside my head. Marlene's voice was shaky as she stood in the doorway, insisting, "Ellis, I didn't put that envelope there. I swear to you. He must have broken into the house or had someone drop it off while we were asleep. He's trying to destroy us, don't you see?" Her words made sense, but they didn't comfort me. Instead, they terrified me. If Jonah was willing to cross that line, to physically come into our space, what else was he capable of? That day felt like living in someone else's nightmare. Marlene wouldn't let her phone out of her sight, which only made me more suspicious, even though I knew she was on edge because of Jonah. Every time a car slowed down near our house, I felt this electric jolt of paranoia shoot through me. I kept replaying Jonah's words in my head, over and over. "She's been mine for a while now." What if he wasn't lying? What if the blackmail story was just Marlene's way of easing me into the truth? By evening, I couldn't take it anymore. I needed answers, and I needed control back. I told Marlene I was going to confront him again. Her reaction was immediate. She grabbed my arm, her nails digging into my skin. "Ellis, please, if you go to him, you'll just give him more power. That's what he wants. He's not afraid of you. He's dangerous." Her words sent a chill down my spine. Dangerous. She didn't say it like it was a figure of speech. She said it like she knew things about Jonah that I didn't. Things that made him more than just some arrogant manager with a grudge. When I pressed her, she looked away and said, "There's more. Jonah isn't just my boss. He's connected. He knows people. The kind of people you don't want to cross." That night, as Marlene cried herself to sleep in our bedroom, I sat in my office, staring at my phone. My inbox had a new email from an address I didn't recognize. No subject line, no message body, just a single image attached. When I opened it, I felt my stomach drop. It was a photo of me and Marlene from our wedding day, except someone had drawn a thick black X over my face. I don't know if I was shaking from fear or anger, but something inside me snapped. This wasn't about saving my marriage anymore. It was about protecting myself, protecting Marlene, even if I didn't know how much of her I could still trust. I replied to the email with one line, "Meet me tomorrow. We end this." I didn't tell Marlene about the email. Part of me didn't want to see that look in her eyes again, the one that told me we were both drowning and neither of us had the strength to pull the other out. But I also knew something had to give. Tomorrow, I was going to see Jonah again, whether it ended in answers or something far worse. The next day I met Jonah again, but this time I was ready. I wasn't the broken man from the pier, shaking in front of him. I had spent the entire night piecing together the fragments of Marlene's story, digging through messages, checking security cameras, even calling one of her co-workers. It turned out she wasn't lying. Jonah had a history of manipulating women at the office, cornering them with threats, making them feel powerless. He wasn't just some rival for my wife's heart. He was a predator, hiding behind a suit and a fake smile. When I met him, I told him I had proof of his harassment, that Marlene wasn't the first woman he'd hurt, and that if he didn't back off, I would go straight to the police and his company's board with everything. For the first time, I saw a flicker of fear in his eyes. He tried to bluff, tried to laugh it off, but I stood my ground. I wasn't leaving that pier until I knew he'd never go near my wife again. And you know what? It worked. Maybe he realized he couldn't keep his game up any longer, or maybe he just didn't want the trouble. He backed down, muttering something about me being more trouble than I was worth. It wasn't some grand cinematic showdown, but it was enough. When I got home, I told Marlene everything, every word, every threat, every fear I'd had. For the first time in weeks, I felt like we were on the same side again. We cried together that night, and I'll be honest, trust isn't something you can just snap your fingers and rebuild. It takes time. But we decided we'd fight for it. We'd fight for us. We started therapy a week later. Marlene quit her job, cut all contact with Jonah, and for the first time, I felt like she was really choosing me. Not because she had to, but because she wanted to. It wasn't the perfect ending I thought I wanted, but it was real, and maybe that's even better. So if you've stuck with me through this roller coaster, I want to hear from you. Have you ever had a moment in a relationship where everything felt like it was falling apart, but somehow it brought you closer in the end? Share your thoughts in the comments. And if you want more true stories like this, don't forget to subscribe to Forsaken Joe. What do you think? Should we tell more stories like this where the ending isn't all doom and heartbreak, but about finding some kind of hope?